Hello everyone, thank you again for joining us on this latest edition of the 5 Sports Show. I'm Dante, Centofanti, joined now by the new sports director of WDTV, Cameron Murray. How does it feel to be the new sports director, my friend?
No, it feels good. I'll just say this, Atticus, the person that kind of got this show off the road, is 5 Sports Show, so shout out to him. And yeah, ready to keep going, hit the ground running, and continue doing this 5 Sports. Let's go.
And again, big congratulations to Atticus as he begins a new chapter in his career. All right, Cam, now WVU basketball, they took a big L this past weekend against the top-ranked Arizona Wildcats on the road, but they were able to bounce back Tuesday night at the Coliseum, beating Kansas State in what was a pretty physical game down the stretch at the end. You and I were watching it, and one thing that really stood out was the really physical defense that Ross Hodge was able to put on the floor late in that game, which led them to another conference victory.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, you had a guy like Brennan Lorient playing one of his best defensive games of the season. Obviously on the stat sheet, 10.6 rounds, you might not notice it, but the hard work he put in the paint and really holding P.J. Haggerty, the leading scorer in the Big 12, one of the best scorers in the nation, to 0 points in the first half. And honestly, the points that he did get were off some very tough shots, forcing shots in double coverage, contested shots in the paint. I mean, they did not give Haggerty any good looks. And the West Virginia Mountaineers, 13-0 in Hope Coliseum this season. So they play well at home. They beat Kansas, and we'll see if they can beat Baylor. Baylor's a struggling team right now, Dante, not as we've seen in years past. So the Mountaineers could potentially have a nice, 2-game home win streak at this point in the week. But yeah, Baylor's not a good team this year, so hopefully Mountaineers can take advantage of that this weekend.
One thing about this team compared to last year's team is, they need to be able to have confidence going into tournament play. And we saw this team last year, have really key conference wins, in the heart of the Big 12 schedule. But then at the back end, they lost momentum, which was why they were one of the first teams out of the tournament last year. But if they could continue to gain momentum in the middle of the season, that's going to be great. But again, the key thing for me is with this team, they got to be able to win Big 12 games down the stretch going into the tournament in Kansas City. It's in Kansas City again this year, right?
Right. I mean, I totally agree with that. I think the way the Big 12 is this season and just in general, I mean, the Big 12 is the best conference in college basketball. I would compare it like this. The Big 12 right now is essentially like the SEC or Big 10 in college football. You're going to get at least 8 or 9 teams into the March Madness if you can just control what you can control, win the games that you're supposed to win, and you'll have a path to March. But right now, I think West Virginia's in a good spot, similar to where they were last year.
Absolutely.
They had a top 25 win at this point in the year. And, Arizona, Houston, Iowa State, those are the top 3 big dogs. And BYU as well, they're also included in that. So it will not get easier for West Virginia, but this weekend will be another win that they should get if they want to have some March Madness dreams.
And, it's all about confidence. And the better they play in Big 12 play. Now, when you play Arizona, that's an historically great team. For all of you out there that watch college basketball on the regular and love this sport, Arizona, this is an historically great team. So we can't really fault Ross Hodge and company for how they played. They did the best that they could on the road. Obviously, they wanted a different result, but they did the best that they could. But these conference games, Kansas State, their Colorado win, the upcoming game against Baylor, these are going to be the games where they really develop confidence. And that's a big thing if you're a program with a first-year head coach.
I'll say this, though. I think one thing fans might, or maybe just a slippery slope in general, West Virginia should not be in the same, like the Kansas States, the Colorados, the Arizona States, the TCUs, and even the Utah, I guess, if you want to put that, UCF. Like that's the tier of teams West Virginia is currently in. And then you go to the tier of teams, like I said, the BYUs, Houston, Iowa States, Kansas. I think they find themselves straddling that line between are they in that other tier, are they in that good tier? This season, I don't know. It's hard to tell, but West Virginia needs to, same thing in football. You can't just be stagnant in this tier of teams where, yeah, you're controlling, you're winning the games against your evenly matched opponents, but I need West Virginia to get a top 10 win. And it's possible. Look, I'm not saying it's impossible. You're going to face a BYU that's going to be top 15. You're going to face an Arizona probably later in the season again, and you're probably going to face a team like, a Houston. If you make it into the Big 12 conference tournament and you're deep in that run, I want to see them compete against a team like that. Every time they put a team in the top 10, they've lost by 30. So we can't sit here and say, oh, they did the best they can. We can't say that because you lose by 30 to one of the best teams in the country. Yeah, for a mid-major, oh, they did the best they can, but you're in the Big 12. You can't lose it by 30 to a top 5 team 3 times and consider that a good showing. I don't think Ross Hodge and the Mountaineers believe in that. I don't think they say, oh, moral victory, but I think it's a slippery slope when you start saying, oh, they lost by 30 to 3 of the best teams in the Big 12, and they're still having a good season. I don't think that at all, and I don't think Ross Hodge and the Mountaineers subscribe to that opinion as well.
Well, I'm not saying they do. I'm looking at it from the perspective of people that watch this team
right,
every day and that cover the team. Again, they did the best they could, but obviously you're right. You're in the Big 12, you need to perform better, but they'll have other opportunities. But like I said, when you play teams like Colorado, Baylor, Kansas State, teams that West Virginia is clearly better than,
yes,
that builds confidence. So then when you play BYU and these other highly ranked Big 12 teams late in the season, you've got that confidence, and that's going to carry you into the Big 12 tournament, which West Virginia needs, because these last 2 seasons, they didn't have any confidence going into the Big 12 tournament. This year, they need to make sure that they have that swagger when they enter Kansas City.
I agree with that. I mean, they don't have a Javon Small this year, and I think Honor Huff might be the closest guy to a game changer for them. Of course, late in games, he turns it on and is very good. But the way they match up against teams comes down to defense. We saw how they stopped P.J. Haggerty. Well,
they were so physical down the stretch, Cam. I was really impressed. I was very impressed.
It's going to be interesting when you see A.J. DeBance to come into the Coliseum, how they can stop him. But I mean, not a lot of teams can. So we'll have to see on that. But we were watching the Providence-UConn game. That's the Big East, right? Big East teams play close. Whether UConn's ranked top 5, Providence isn't even ranked, right? That game was close to the end. And UConn is a top 5 team in the nation. Yeah. Providence is unranked. Yeah. So that's a sign. Across the country, ACC, SEC, it doesn't really matter what you're ranked. It shouldn't really matter when it comes to conference games. Unfortunately, this year in the Big 12, it seems like West Virginia's having a lot of trouble against the best teams in the country, which is not going to bode well for March. So, I mean, they have plenty of time to fix that and figure that out. But right now, just first year head coach things, I guess. First year things to deal with when you're playing in the Big 12.
All right, we're going to shift gears now to high school basketball. The season, we're really into the heart of it here in North Central West Virginia. We're going to take a look at some of these upcoming games. You look at the Friday slate of games. Preston is going to go on the road playing a Robert C. Byrd team that has been playing very good basketball lately. Friday, also Fairmont Senior is going to take on Lincoln. And then you have another interesting Friday matchup in Elite Academy taking on Trinity Christian. Then we shift gears into Saturday. Everybody's going to be worried about the Mountaineers and how they fare against Baylor. But there's also going to be a lot of really good boys high school basketball. Saturday, George Washington takes on University. That is going to be not only one of the biggest games in North Central West Virginia, but one of the biggest games in the state that weekend. And then you also have Doddridge County taking on Philip Barber and St. Mary's taking on South Harrison. Now, Cam, as we get into this part of the high school basketball season, when you look at these matchups, which one stands out the most to you? Well,
you nailed it. G-Dub in the University. Quad A state champions last year. Dominant kid Noah Lewis, I think, is probably one of the best players in the state for GW. And University is a solid team as well. They were in the playoffs. They had a tough loss. I believe they lost to Washington maybe in that first round. They were a 7 seed, lost to – oh, no. You know what? I'm pretty sure they lost to George – I could be wrong, but they lost to either Parkersburg South or George Washington in that state tournament last year I was at. But University is a solid team. I have to say, Quad A this year, and you'll see it for our Player of the Week. We have a kid from Buchanan, Jaron Westfall. Quad A, I mean – Buchanan is playing some amazing basketball right now. You got a kid averaging nearly 30 points per game. University, solid season so far. But George Washington is probably far and away, aside from Spring Mills, who's on the Eastern Panhandle, they're probably the 2 best teams in the state. So we'll see. University's going to have a tough task ahead of them, but, I think University is still a solid team. It's not going to be a 20-point blowout or anything like that. GW's a solid school, but I think University will keep it close. And should be a good game. Is that at University or is that down in Charleston?
I'm pretty sure it's at University.
Okay, cool.
Pretty sure. I could be wrong, but that's what Max Prep said.
Well, I never heard of.
Yeah, University.
One thing from the other ones, I never heard of the Lead Academy. What's a Lead Academy? You ever heard of them? They're not in West Virginia.
I have not.
Oh well, that'd be interesting
Trinity
to
Christian,
see.
I mean, they've been quietly having a very good season. I mean, we pay attention to University in Morgantown, but Trinity Christian, they're also in Morgantown, right?
Yep. They're in Monongalia County.
They're also having a very good season as well, so we got to shout out them. But that's all the time we have for this edition of the 5 Sports Show. Now, again, be sure to subscribe to WDTV's YouTube channel for all the latest coverage throughout North Central West Virginia, news, sports, and weather. Be sure to download our mobile app. And again, these next 2 days, we'll be at these gyms, we'll be covering these games, and we'll be locked in on the Mountaineers. So once again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And again, thank you for watching.